YouTube, it's Becky from Becky Writes. This is Becky Reads, and this is my March TBR. This is going to be kind of a shorter TBR and a little bit of a life update all smashed together. Life has just been really crazy for me, and I have not been on my normal 2 videos a week schedule, so I apologize for that. I want to start by saying hello, new people. There have been a lot of new folks who have subscribed, so hello and welcome. I am so glad you found my little picnic blanket of the internet, and I'm glad you're here, and I hope that we can have some great chats. February was a slow reading month for me, and I think March is going to continue to be a slow reading month for me. I am really focusing on writing. There's a lot going on in my life, there's a lot of projects that I'm doing, and I'm really shifting my focus from reading right now into writing. I have a work in progress, a manuscript that I'm working on that is a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. Those of you who've been around since the beginning know that this was my NaNoWriMo 2015 project, and I have revisited it and am expanding it and growing it and revising it and making it a whole lot better than it was. And I'm excited about where it's going. It's a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood that takes place in 1950s Montana with an interracial love story that is at the heart of what's going on. So I'm not doing as much reading, and I'm not watching as many videos as I want to because all my spare time is typing words. And honestly, I have a hard time reading fiction while writing fiction because I'm so afraid that I will pick up on another author's style or nuance or be overly influenced. For me, my average is between 10 to 12 books a month, right? I average between 10 and 12 books a month. That's my normal reading speed. And I think I'm going to cut that in half and look at trying to get about 6 books for the month of March, which is very small for me. I have read 6 audiobooks in a month before. I may read more and I may read less. It just will depend. And if February is any indication, I'll be on the less side rather than the more side. Now, as you can see, I'm not filming in my bedroom. I'm actually downstairs in my sort of living room kitchen space because my bedroom is a disaster. I've turned part of my bookshelf into a standing desk, and so I have books literally scattered on every single surface. They're on my dressery space, they're on my regular desk, they're on my chair where I keep like extra clothes, they're on the floor, they're everywhere, and cleaning that mess up to film was just more than I could handle right now. So here we are in my sort of kitchen living room space, and we're gonna start off the TBR part of this with the TBR Jar challenge. Alright, I have read a book from outside your comfort zone. There you guys can see it. Okay, I just ran upstairs and looked. There are a couple of different books that I am thinking about reading for a book outside of my comfort zone. The first one is The Tidal Zone by Sarah Moss. This is one that was really all over British BookTube last fall and winter. And this is a story of a stay-at-home dad whose oldest daughter basically collapses at school and has to be taken to the hospital and is discovered to have a pretty severe heart condition. So it is this story of this family that is kind of falling apart and having to put itself back together, while the father is also writing the history of Coventry Cathedral, which is a cathedral in England that was bombed during the Second World War and has never been rebuilt. It's the skeleton walls of the cathedral still stand, but it has never been rebuilt. This kind of story is not the sort of story I read. I don't really read family dramas. I don't read literary fiction. I don't read a lot of things that are set in our contemporary time because I am an escapist reader, and this kind of story is not the kind of story you read to escape. So I have been hesitating with it, but the overwhelmingly positive reviews that people I respect gave for this book have made me want to pick it up. So this is one that's definitely outside of my comfort zone, but has been one that I've had an eye on. Now I am making a goal for 2017 to begin to read some sci-fi. Sci-fi is outside of my comfort zone, although it's closer to my comfort zone than literary fiction. Sci-fi and fantasy tend to be cousins. I have found that sci-fi, at least from an outsider's perspective, tends to be much more masculine, and it tends to be marketed to men. That is my experience of it. So I want to dip my toe into those vast waters of sci-fi and begin to read classics and begin to read stuff that's popular now and kind of get a feel for what that entire genre is about. Because honestly, I haven't read sci-fi since I was in high school, and like the last sci-fi I remember reading was Ender's Game when I was 14 and didn't know any better, so I really want to read more sci-fi and have a better appreciation for what's out there. So the 2 books that could potentially fulfill my read a book outside your comfort zone. Avalon by Mindee Arnett. This is a recent purchase of mine, and it's the first in a sci-fi duology that is about young adults in space doing hijinks, and I think that there is a heist element to this story. And then of course the Three Body Problem by Shin Lu. This again is one of my recent purchases and is definitely a much harder sci-fi and definitely something that is outside of my comfort zone. This is also a book in translation, and I don't read a ton of works in translation, but I do want to read more of them. So this is on my list of potential books that's outside of my comfort zone that can fulfill my TBR Jar challenge for March. Now I want to say I could also pick up something totally different. I mean, there's lots of things that are outside of my comfort zone. Romance is outside of my comfort zone. Most thrillers, mysteries, and horror are outside of my comfort zone, and there are books in all of those genres that I kind of want to read. So these are 3 that I currently own on my shelves that I might read, but I could also pick up something else. There are some other books I'm pretty confident I'm going to get to. One of them is an audiobook, and that is The Gunpowder War. This is by Naomi Novik, and it's the 2nd book in the Temeraire series. I am on the waiting list for this audiobook from my library, and I definitely want to continue the series, so I'll be excited to pick that up this month. Now, I do have some flights at the beginning of the month, which will give me prime opportunities to read if I choose to read instead of write. So here are some books that I may pick up. The Girl of Fire and Thorns by Ray Carson. I've been meaning to read this trilogy forever. And I even bought the first one, this book, as an audiobook because it was on a super sale on Audible last week, and I was like, I need to get to this series. I need to read it. I've had this on my shelves for like a year. I know I'm going to enjoy it. Like, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to enjoy it. Sam from Thoughts on Tomes loves it. Christy from Melbourne on My Mind loves it. Like, these are 2 women whom I really respect, so I really want to read this one, and I think a flight might be a really great opportunity to read one book on the way to my destination and the other book on the way from my destination. Alright, another book is a bit of a spoiler for what I didn't read for February, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I didn't get to this in February. Again, this could be a book that I read this one on my way to my destination and start, at least, the second one on my way from the destination. Like The Girl of Fire and Thorns, I actually bought this first one on audio as well because they were having a really great sale on Audible. So I have this one as an audiobook, I also have it as a physical book, and this could be a great time to read them during my flights and then come back and finish the last book. And then there's a couple of standalones that I might visit this month. The first one is Wintersong by S. Jae-Jones. You're getting spoiled for a future book haul. This book came out this month and was one of my most anticipated releases for February, and is one that I am really excited about. This is a labyrinth retelling, but instead of taking place in the 1980s, it takes place, I think, in the 1800s in like Germany. I have heard mostly positive, like no one has said it's terrible. Some people have said it was okay and some people have said it was good. So I'm hopeful. This is a debut novel, and debut novels are hard, right? Like the first Grisha book is not as good as Six of Crows. Like authors get better as they have more experience. So I'm excited for this. And finally, and this is perhaps a little bit more likely, I may do a reread of Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I loved this book. This was one of my favorite books of last year. Reading some of other Naomi Novik's work, this just stands out because it's so different than the Temeraire books. And I love this so much. I mean, look at all these tabs. I loved Uprooted. It is a fairy tale, but it's not a retelling of any fairy tale you've ever heard. It's a completely new story, but it's definitely got magic and wizards and embodied nature and evil queens, and it's just everything that you want from a fairy tale. It's complex, it begins to deal with adult themes without being completely adult, and the language has the right balance of whimsy and wit. I just really enjoyed Uprooted. Part of me has wanted to allow myself to go back and do some rereads. I definitely have some books on my list I plan on rereading. This is one of them because I want to see if reading it a second time is as fun as the first time. And when I'm writing a story, you know, maybe it'll be good to reread something I'm already familiar with. I won't be as afraid of taking over someone else's language. I don't know. I loved this. I feel like now would be a nice time to reread it. It may get read in March, it may not. Those are some of the options I have for March, but I'm not honestly married to any of them. You may not see any of these books that I review at the end of the month because I'm in a weird place of mood reading and really being attentive to my writing, and I'm in the writing process. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that on Wednesday of this week, Wednesday, March March 1st, 2017 is Ash Wednesday, and I am a practicing Christian who celebrates Lent. So Lent starts Wednesday, and it is a time of fasting, but fasting isn't always about food. It can be about practices, it can be about habits. Fasting can actually manifest as you taking on a spiritual discipline, so that you're fasting from indulgences or you're fasting from laziness or whatever, however you want to incorporate that. And I practice Lent. Part of my fasting is going to be about food and eating simply, and really trying to eat whole foods, simple foods, basic foods to appreciate the abundance that I have. The other one is that I'm going to be reading something devotional every day. And I say that like I'm a liberal Christian, so please don't take this as me trying to push any of my faith on you, but I am going to be reading something, probably some of Bonhoeffer's letters, every single day as an act of reminding myself like why I celebrate Lent. So that's going to also shape my reading, because my reading for a day might just be my little, 2 pages of, hey, don't be a jerk, here's some Jesus quotes kind of devotional reading. That's pretty much my life. I have Lent, I have lots of very relevant interreligious dialogue stuff, like I could do a whole video on how relevant interreligious dialogue is right now, but I will spare you. And I have writing, and writing my own novel means I can read less of other people's novels. So comment down below and tell me, one, how you found this channel, even if you've been around for a while. How did you find me? I am so curious. Also comment down below and leave me some of your recommendations for books that are outside of your comfort zone. We may have different comfort zones, but I'd love to hear a book that might be outside of your comfort zone, and what would get you to read that book outside of your comfort zone. I hope you guys are all doing well. I promise I will talk to you very soon. Bye!